Hey there! As you've seen in the intro, I made some bricks, and they are fully procedural in Blender, as usual. You can download the file in the description. They are actually using a little tool that I built for making bricks, and I've thrown in 3 example shaders that are using this tool, so you can just use them or take a look at them, or even make your own new brick material. If you want me to show you how I can create a custom brick shader like the 3 examples that I did, let me know in the comments and I can make a tutorial on it. Okay, first of all I want to show you the example shaders that I came up with. You can see the full renderings on my ArtStation, but here they are as well. Now you can see how they work inside Blender. On the right side you see a sphere render with displacement. On the left side I'm just showing how I configure a few of the base settings in the render view, more on that later. One important side note, in my setup I'm using some nodes that aren't implemented in 2.79, so the shaders will only work in 2.8. Keep that in mind. Okay, now that you know what they look like, let me show you how I can append them to your file. Just pull up the blend file that you downloaded from Gumroad, drag and drop it onto your file, choose append, go to the materials folder, and choose the materials you want to append. Press enter, and there we have them. I just prepared a simple scene setup with a wall, which is just a UV mapped plane with some modifiers, a ground plane, a tree for some shadows, and a sunlight. Let's choose a brick shader. Here you can see it doesn't really work as planned. The reason is that Eevee isn't able to handle such complex shaders right now. Br'cks 2 is the most complex one out of the 3, so it won't work properly. The other 2 work better with Eevee. But as you'll see, Cycles doesn't have a problem. For the final rendering, I'm using micro displacement for the shaders. If you don't want that, to save render time, for example, all you have to do is cut this connection and instead use this normal map. That way, even without the displacement, you'll get the bricks to pop out a little bit. But we want to set up the displacement as well right now. To set up micro displacement, we have to change the feature set here in the render settings to experimental and add a subdivision surface modifier to the plane. Make sure to enable the adaptive checkbox here. Depending on your object, you'll have to choose either Catmull Cloak or Simple. I'm going with Catmull Cloak because I'm using the modifiers before. And that's it basically. Let me quickly give this a test render. And as you can see, this doesn't look quite as good as the renders I showed you before. The reason for that is the displacement strength. This highly depends on the scale of your coordinates, so it will be different for every object. To fix this, you have to go into the shader editor and adjust the displacement strength here. I mark it red. I'm just going to choose 4, which means it will be 4 times as strong. Let's give this another render. Now this is looking a lot better. Alright, you've noticed this node group here marked in green. This is the heart of the shaders and a advanced custom bricks texture I called Br'cks. Let me show you how I can use it in a new file and explain the different parameters and outputs. Here I have a very simple scene, just a plane, a sun and a camera. Now again, let me grab the file and drag it into Blender. Choose Append, then go into the node tree and choose Br'cks. Now just add a new material, get rid of this BSDF, and add the node group. Here you can see what it looks like in the look depth view. Let me just go through the parameters one by one. First, we have the usual vector input. I just choose a UV map. Then the scale, the width, and the height. Then also a mortar and a bevel to smooth the edges. Then also a round corner. Then we have a random rotation between 1 and 0, depending on the size of your mortar. Then a random offset, offsetting the rows to each other. But also a regular offset, which will offset every second row. Then we have a random split, which is not a percentage, but arbitrary units. If you want every single brick to be split, you can put in negative values. Then of course we have a seed to change the randomness. And the last input is a tile size, which most of the time you'll want to leave at 0, but it can be actually pretty useful. To show what it does, I have to adjust the UV map here for the plane. Let me just scale it 4 times. To see what we're doing, let me quickly adjust the output here. I'll explain later. Now the bricks have a random color. Okay, so with a tile size of 0, you can see that there's no repetition in the pattern. If I put this to 1, I have repetition, which is exactly 1 unit. Remember, we scaled it 4 times, so it's 4 times in each direction. If I put it to 2, it'll repeat every 2 units. You might be wondering what's that useful for? Well, it's just for exporting your textures. Sometimes you want tiling. But most of the time, if you stay within Blender, you can just keep it at 0. Okay, let's take a look at the different outputs. First, what we've seen before is the height, which is just 0 for the mortar and 1 for the top of the bricks. Then between a gradient, depending on your bevel and your corner. Next, we have a mortar, which is just a black and white mask. And then, what you've already seen before, a random RGB. This is really useful for your shaders to get some randomness involved. Next, we have the cell position. This can actually be very useful. Let me quickly show you what it can do. As you can see, it basically pixelates the coordinates of our UV map depending on the pattern of the bricks. That means I can just give the bricks a texture like this. As you can see, it's basically pixelated in the pattern of our bricks. There are also quite some artifacts here. To avoid those, we have to change the interpolation type from linear to smart. Like this, you can color your bricks depending on a image texture. Then we have a cell vector, which is also pretty useful. This gives every single brick a coordinate map from 0 to 1 for the X and the Y direction. And that way you can map image textures or any other texture onto each single brick. For example, a gradient texture. Then we have a split map, which is just a black and white mask image for the bricks that I split in half. You will need that if you want to shade your bricks depending on their true width, which is half, of course, if it's split. And last, we have a tilt map, which gives each single brick a linear gradient in a random direction. This is what I'm using in my shaders to give the bricks a random tilt. Let me quickly show you how I can do this. I just add a displacement node, plug in the height, but then transform the height with the tilt map. For this, I'll just choose multiply. Obviously, this is only going to work with displacement, so we have to set up our micro displacement again. Again, experimental. Subdivision surface modifier with adaptive. But then there's one more thing we have to keep in mind. In the material settings, we have to enable the displacement under displacement method. Now we can give this a render and it should work. I just tuned down the scale of the displacement a bit so we can see it better, but this looks like it works. So yeah, that's it about the tool for now. Like I said in the beginning, let me know if you want to see a tutorial how to create your custom brick texture. Also, Article 13 is going to crush the internet soon, and I kind of want to get partnered on YouTube before that happens, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share the videos, whatever helps. I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you. And also, I'm recording on a new webcam with a little bit of a studio lighting here. And I already did one test stream, but I'm planning to do more streams in the future. So make sure to check those out if you want to see my process in real time. I'm going to prepare a little bit of a plan for the next stream. The first one was kind of random, but I'm going to leave all of the streams online on my channel in a separate playlist. Other than that, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, congratulations. I'll see you next time.